Hello, welcome back to Math Time with Professor Prime, and I'm your host as always, Professor Prime. Today we're going to talk about math and Hi-Fi Rush. So, I'm excited. Uh, Hi-Fi Rush is a very excellent game. It is a rhythm action game, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to have fun with it. Um, I don't intend to talk about any major spoilers, but I'm also not going to hold myself back. So if you don't want spoilers, you don't have to watch. I get it. But if you don't care about spoilers or you're willing to take that risk, yeah, or you already played the game, then stick around. So let's get into it. Assume that there will be spoilers ahead just to be safe. Let's go. Okay, so with Hi-Fi Rush, like I said, it's a rhythm action game. So it's a combination of a rhythm game with a hack and slash, beat 'em up type game. Like to me, there are a lot of things you could compare it to, but to me, the closest thing would be Devil May Cry. And if you like watch my videos and you've stuck around this channel, that won't shock you. So we're gonna get into that a little bit more, but I want to talk about why it even appealed to me in the first place. So like I said, right, it's a rhythm action game, and I don't talk about it often, but I do like me a good rhythm game. I back when I was younger, it was things like Amplitude, Frequency, Space Channel 5, and then later like in college. Um, it was stuff like the Guitar Hero games and Rock Band with friends and stuff like that, and sometimes on my own with the Guitar Hero part. But I like those games, and I like when games incorporate rhythm. And for action games, notably of that hack and slash variety, notably ones that are very similar to Devil May Cry in some way, shape, or form. It's like, or I mean, like a lot of ways, shapes, and forms. I dig that sort of thing, right? I dig the stylistic action. I dig the fast-paced nature of it. I dig it, and I dig it hard. So combining those games, it's an awesome thing, right? Now, I don't know if people really question like, oh, well, how will that work or not? But here's the thing. When I heard of what Hi-Fi Rush was about, it didn't shock me. I thought it was really cool and it's innovative, but to me, it's like it's a pretty logical jump. Here's why. With a lot of games that are like, that high, fast paced game that's like a really combo heavy, and you get a different variety of weapons, and you have some sort of dodge mechanic or some sort of parry system, typically both. Uh, with games of that nature, there's a rhythm to them, right? And I'm sure some of you have experienced that sort of thing, right? Because not only do they have these like battle mechanics that lend themselves to it, but you as a player, right? When you're in that rhythm, when you're in that groove, when you're in the zone, not only do you get better scores in games like that, but there's a rhythm to it, and there's a flow to it, right? And I think that's cool. So when we talk about Hi-Fi Rush in particular, oh, it's great. It's really great. Um, so I'm going to talk about my opinions more on that later, but to give that indicator, I enjoyed myself with it. So it is very rich mechanically. So the basic premise of the game is, you get to go around and you have your action elements, sure, but like it's action to rhythm, right? The world around you, it moves to the rhythm. Same with your combat. Like you play as Chai. Um, and we'll get to him and some other characters as we go on throughout this. So you play as Chai, who has an accident that you know, leads to a music player being lodged into him, and crazy stuff happens. And like I said, the world is kind of in sync with that, with him and the beat, right? So, and one of the big things is like it's very combo heavy, right? Um, and to start to talk about the math behind that and expand from there, um, just the combos in and of themselves are very math heavy and just the combat in general. So let's break that down a little bit before we continue. So when it comes to the combat, the basic idea is dish out damage and try to avoid damage, right? Or counter it, whatever the case may be. And no matter how you cut that, right? It's very math centric. It's very math heavy. And then when you get to the combos in particular, right? There's so much that you're doing with timing, right? So much you're doing with the buttons that you press, the order that you press them in. And in some cases, you might press something repeatedly to get an effect, right? Or you might pause to get an effect. Or, you might have your attacks like slam someone on the ground or knock them up in the air, push them back, whatever the case may be, right? There's math in all of that. And I think that's cool. We don't necessarily think about it that way, but yeah. So not only is there math in the basic combat, the idea of dishing out damage while trying to avoid taking it, there's math in the combos. And to add to the combos, there's the idea of doing so to the music, to the beat. The game has a soundtrack, and Chai is combat. The whole entire world is moving into beat, and sorry, moving with the beat of any given song on the game soundtrack, and that's crazy. That's awesome. And so you have the idea of beat hits that when you finish a combo, like you eventually unlock that idea and you finish a combo. And if you do it exactly on that beat or, pretty close to it, you can dish out more damage and you can score higher. And speaking of score, like each round of combat that you have, or like, not just round, because you could have like two rounds, but the idea is like each set of rounds yields a score, right? Throughout the game, and that's pretty cool. Like, and that score is based on how you're dealing with things in combat. The damage that you're dishing out, the beat hits you get, and the timing of those hits, right? And so the combat is very rich because not only are you dealing with like the idea of pressing the buttons, pressing them in order, getting different effects, like either, I mean, so not. Ugh, I can speak. So you're dealing with the combos, you're dishing out damage, you're avoiding taking it, and what so that's with combos you're able to do a lot of different things with them, right? Because you are looking at the kind of buttons that you have to press while getting a feel for them, holding down some buttons in some cases, pushing enemies back, things like that. So there's all this stuff going on, right? And a lot to do with time, a lot to do with distance, a lot to do with speed. And all of that is mathematical. And throughout the combat, not only do you have just the idea of combos, like I was saying, but there's other elements too. Is um, It's getting late. But okay, so is you're dealing with dishing out combos, right? You do have health to consider, which is also math at the end of the day, right? That health bar is a visual representation of the health that you have, right? Like you start out at 100, you go to zero, and you can increase your max health as you go on. And you also have the idea of the reverb gauge, um, which is pretty cool. Uh, and with that gauge, you can fill that up as you go on and do special attacks. And those special attacks have a wide range of things they could do because some might just be to stun, some might be to push back your enemies, some might be to distract them, some might be to dish out more damage. Sometimes it's like a few hits, sometimes it's something crazy. Some like heal you. There's a wide range of effects, and all of them are math. And you can unlock different chips throughout the game, like by buying them. And they have a wide range of effects too, right? Because you can do things like allow your combo meter to stay up longer, so you can increase your rank and how long the combo is going. But you could also do things like increase your attack, increase your defense and stuff like that. But you also have partners throughout the game that you get, right? And they have cooldown meters represented by like themselves and like fading out and then like filling back up. And you can decrease those cooldown times, right? And you can do that through chips. So there's a lot going on there just on the base level, and it doesn't seem like that way necessarily, but there is, right? Because like you have the idea of like, oh, well, you're going out there and you're attacking. You can do different combos. You can mess around with timing. You can keep track of distance, how long it takes for you to do this attack, that attack, and you can keep track of the speed of yourself, the speed of your opponents, along with their distance and stuff like that, and really go to town and move around the playing field. And you have the idea of a magnet that allows you to jump towards your opponents. So you can use that to great effect. You also have the idea of dodging. You have the idea of parrying, and that's math too. Your timing has to be pretty on it, especially with the parrying. And with the parrying, you have the idea of basic enemies, and you can just press the parry button at the right time and deflect. But there are some that the parrying works a little differently, where you get a little mini game in it. So they're making those movements and sounds associated with those movements, and you're trying to match them when you press the parry button. And so how those are mapped out and how they're spaced out, you gotta time your parrying accordingly. And there's math in that. That's all math, and I think that's really cool. Um, and so yeah, it's like you're monitoring your health. You're trying to dish out damage. Trying to like um, not take it, right? Or be able to counter it. All the while, building up that reverb gauge and using your special attack, whether it's to dish out more damage on your opponents or heal. And all the while, you're zipping around that battlefield with your guitar and just rocking it out. And I think that's cool. And throughout the game, you're collecting chips, and like I mentioned earlier, there's a wide range of effects with those chips. So you're doing that, and you're building up your money. In this case, it's like in the form of gears, and you're using that to buy different attacks, different special attacks, different chips, all that good stuff. And like I said, you do have your partners, and they have different attacks that you can get from them, and you can get really inventive when you're in combat with them. You have Peppermint, you have Macaron, and Corsica, which I really like that name. Also, awesome character. They're all really like awesome, the people that you work with, and of course, just in regular combat, you have 808, a robot cat, RoboCat. I was like, I like the name 808. I see what they did there. Um, and that's awesome. So you can work with your partners at certain times. You could also use that through navigation throughout the game, like platforming and things along those lines. And they each have different effects. Like Peppermint, you can use her to like shoot lasers, and there's some opponents that will have shields that those lasers can penetrate. So you want to be able to use her during that. And with Macaron, he's able to like dish out some damage, break through some shields, and so. But like you got to consider his range. So like with Peppermint, she's like you can use at her distance or close range. With Macaroon, he works really well with short range and bringing the damage. Now with Corsica, in her case, she's not dishing out damage like the other two, but what she can do is stun the opponents as well as put out fires. So you can alternate between these partners that you're working with throughout the game, and you can adjust what you're going to do in combat with them based on your enemies, based on your types. And I think like that's all like really cool because when it comes to sound and it comes to the colors, um, you know, they're all mathematical in their very nature and the properties that come with them. And I mentioned the colors because one, it's a really colorful game, but also the colors are used to indicate the enemies and which partner you should use to fend them off. And these colors, they again, they're mathematical in nature, and being able to pick this color and put them there, and have that mean something. I think that's pretty cool because we could say, hey, we just have this thing that doesn't have to mean anything, but we're making it mean something. And I like that. And like I said, sound is the same deal, right? It's like it's something that is inherently mathematical. It's physical property. We're dealing with vibrations moving through the air, right? Or not air, but like it can be air. We're dealing with vibrations moving through a medium at its core. And then when we take music, right, we're doing very deliberate things with that idea with sound, right? And it comes with its own physical properties, if not just because music is sound, right? But we're able to impart like some message with music, right? We're able to invoke emotion, we're able to do so many cool things, and Hi-Fi Rush does a lot of cool things with music, and I think that's awesome. And then with color, the idea is like, right, we're dealing with the visible light portion of the electromagnetic spectrum, and something like that. It doesn't seem like it has to be like artistic, but you've seen color, you see how it can be used. Color is a beautiful thing, and it could mean something. And like, so you have this very vibrant game, vibrant in color, vibrant in sound, and all of that at the end of the day is math. And I think that's awesome. So when I'm thinking about other things that pop up, it's just like the platforming does come to mind because like, you can use the partners like I mentioned earlier in those platforming elements, and you're also doing things like keeping track of your distance and keeping track of the environment and being able to navigate that, right? But then there are some things where like you're navigating through an environment, you might have to press a button at the right time, and you have to be able to anticipate what's coming up and be able to navigate it. There's a more eloquent way to say that, but my point is, whether we're talking about the combat or the platforming, there's math involved, and you don't necessarily think about that sort of thing when playing, but it's all there. And then you got to figure, right? Not only do you have these things, but those battle systems had to be constructed, had to be balanced. That music had to be made, had to be balanced. And because the music and the gameplay is just so integrated together, there's so much that had to be done with that. Not to mention the programming, designing the world, making that playable, the marketing, the budget, all that sort of stuff. And so with Hi-Fi Rush, it was made by like Tango Gameworks, and they shut down as of recently, and I bring it up but just because it's so crazy to me. Like Hi-Fi Rush is an excellent game. It originally came out in 2023. I think just on Xbox Series X or whatever for a while, but then it branched out this year. Like I got it on PS5. I don't know if it was on anything else, but I know I got it on PS5 like here in 2024 at the time of the recording. And it's just crazy to me because the game it seemed like it did reasonably well financially, and it was definitely critically acclaimed. Um, but it's been wild. You've had layoffs in pretty much every industry, but it feels so weird with video games, and I guess because I'm like pretty invested in it, so it's like it sucks to have these great games come out and then see studios get shut down. It's like, come on. But that's I don't know. It's a bummer. With that in mind, Tango GameWorks made an excellent game, and I want to talk about uh, that some more and my feelings about said game. So now that I've talked a lot about the map, so with Hi-Fi Rush, I thought it was utterly fascinating. It was a fun cast of characters. Chai is a lot, but fun. Peppermint is pretty stable throughout. Macaron is also pretty stable, and they have very different characters, but they work so well together. And then Corsica is pretty stable too. Awesome, and I think well, all of them are, but like in different ways, and they all have these different personalities that like work pretty well together at the end of the day. And a friend of mine, like when I started playing, she had pointed out one of the things that she liked about the game is like when it comes to the main cast and a lot of other characters, like they're dealing with some disability, they're dealing with some problem, and they're overcoming that, and it's like they're working together and making things happen, and it's awesome. And it's like I'm inclined to agree with that, and I thought it was really cool. I had a blast playing it, and I beat it a few times now, and tried out some different modes. Like I do want to mention one of the modes because like there was several, but one of the ones that I like and probably the most is BPM mode. So it's like you're dealing with this mode where you're dealing with BPM, beats per minute, and you start off at a certain rate, and each like sorry, then you start off at a certain rate, and as you progress through combat, is you're doing well and not breaking your combos, you build up the BPM, and so things get faster as you do. So let's say you start off at like something like 135. Well, maybe it goes up to like 150 once you beat like that round. Like you build it up, and then you have to fight like a group of enemies, and then it ramps up, and then you do this repeatedly until you get to 200. And it varies whether you're on like normal or easy, or I think it was EX mode where it's just like you start off at 200 and you kind of go until until you're done. um, but yeah, so it's all pretty crazy, all pretty fun. And when I look at my experience, it's just like it's such a vibrant, colorful game. It's like jumping into like an anime or a cartoon, and just playing. And they do things pretty well. The characters have pretty fun dynamics. It's like they knew what they wanted to do, because like the idea is like, oh well, I gotta get these keys from these bosses and stop the evil plot, right? That's the general premise. And you know what, there's nothing wrong with that. They knew what they were there for, and it was fun. And you know approaching each boss was different, and I like that. It's like I don't feel like enough games do that. Not knocking them, because sometimes people have formulas and they work, but I do like the innovation, and I think it was a great game. And it's like, hey, we're pretty much. It's like it has so many influences, but it's its own thing, right? Because for me, it's like, hey, it's pretty much like fusing Devil May Cry with a rhythm game, and specifically, it's like fusing Devil May Cry 3 with a rhythm game. And I say that because Devil May Cry 3, which is awesome, and Devil May Cry 3 rocks, is like it's a very colorful game in and of itself in many ways, and also just vibrant, combo heavy, and it's ridiculous and over the top in the best possible way. It knows what it is and what it wants to be, and Hi-Fi Rush very much reminds me of it, but it's also very much its own thing, and I dig it. I like a lot of action games, like a lot of games that are like Devil May Cry, but I also like rhythm games. So to me, it makes sense to like an action rhythm game like this, or a rhythm action game like this, whatever you want to call it. Especially because, as I mentioned a little earlier, a lot of these action games, right, they deal with rhythm more than one might think, right? So it's just like, hey, let's make that jump. Let's just, like literally bring the music into this, and deal with rhythm in that way. And I think that's cool in and of itself, because music is such an integral part of gaming, and it can really amp you up as you go, right? And you're doing things. So it's just like, so to take something that's already well integrated, like music into gaming, and then like integrating it even more, that's that's awesome to me. That's beautiful to me. Yeah, so I enjoyed Hi-Fi Rush. I enjoyed it hard. um and if you haven't played it, I hope that you do, and I hope that you like it. If you have played it, I hope that you liked it. um yeah, so that's pretty much all I have to say in this video. I'll see you in the future. Professor Prime out.